This is the Work at Home Heroes podcast. Your host, Caitlin Pyle, digs deep with people from all over the world who make money from home. Get ready to wake up to a world of possibility for freedom, flexibility, and a life you'll love.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I am your host, Caitlin Pyle, and I'm here with Amy Demone. Now, Amy works with entrepreneurs who are overwhelmed with the day-to-day activities of their business. So I am definitely familiar with feeling overwhelmed by my business. And some of you guys are overwhelmed at home and you're just starting your business. And so we're going to be able to talk to Amy about overcoming overwhelm a little bit. She helps break down projects to become more manageable and create more efficient systems. That's the key here, is breaking things down into small chunks. So we'll talk about that as well. Amy is a nerd when it comes to sales funnels, and we'll talk about what those are. So don't get scared and run away. Sales funnels are not scary, even though I used to think they were. She also recently became a Certified Ontraport Consultant. We'll talk about what that is. And in order to feed her weird obsession, she wanted to go all in with this software called Ontraport. And she's been working in the online business world for just over 2 years and hasn't looked back. Welcome to Work at Home Heroes, Amy.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Now, where are you joining us from today?
I am located in Ottawa, which is in Canada. And contrary to popular belief, it is the capital of the country, not Toronto.
Dude, I didn't know that.
Very common.
If somebody asked me the capital of Canada, I actually probably wouldn't have said Toronto. I may have guessed like Toronto or something, but I would have been like, I definitely wouldn't have said Ottawa. I just didn't know. But you guys listening to this right now, Amy just said she's from Canada. And we get so many questions in my inbox all the time, whether it's, work at home inbox or my proofread anywhere inbox. Can I work at home in Canada? I'm like, well, you live in Canada. Are there people in Canada with problems? Do you have access to the internet in Canada? And I'm in Orlando, Florida. Amy's in Ottawa, Canada. We're talking to each other. We've got this technology that we can connect. And so the answer is yes, you can make it work working at home in Canada. And so I'm so glad to have another Canadian on the show. It's so exciting. So we have a lot of stuff to break down and a lot of stuff to get into. But first, I want to hear kind of your background. How did you get into doing what you do?
So like a lot of people that I've come across, I got into this industry out of by sheer accident. I come from a background in academia. So actually my university degree was in political science. So doing nothing related to that right now, but that's 2018. But I was working in a 9-to-5 for a total of 6 whole days before I was unable to walk. And many doctor's trips later, figured out that it had to do with improper seating, blah, blah, blah. Real boring stuff. But then I was on workers' comp. I was only being paid, like $200 American dollars per month, which, you can't live off that anywhere really. So I Googled how to make money online, and here I am.
Wow. So when you Googled how to make money online, like many of us have done that are listening to this now, what did you find?
I actually still have the link to it. I found an eHow article, which they've now rebranded to another name. And it gave a bunch of options that you could do for working online. So there was data mining, taking surveys. And believe me, I tried every single solitary thing on there because I was like, I don't care. I need money. I need to be able to pay my rent. But I stumbled across Upwork. And at the time, it was right before all the changes happened and they didn't take like half of what you get paid. They only took a small percentage. So I signed up to be on Upwork, got my name out there, and I got a few writing clients, but then I realized quickly that that was not what I wanted to do. And then I applied for a job, wasn't qualified for it, didn't think I was going to get it, and I did. And it was with a coach at the time. She's now changed her role in her business, but we're still friends. We still talk almost daily. And now I work alongside the coaching industry and supporting mostly women entrepreneurs in that realm.
Wow. So you found your niche totally without even trying. It's an accident, and a very happy accident at that. Now, I didn't know that Upwork changed to where they take like half of what you make anymore. I haven't used it in a while. I haven't hired anybody off there in a while. So that's a little bit crazy. I did not know that.
I may be over exaggerating with the cost, but I know it went up by a lot. I think it's 30% now.
Yeah, I do remember they were making some changes to where you could have like some kind of subscription, like $80 a month, or you could pay like this crazy fee. It was a big mess. And so I don't really use it anymore because of that. But it sounds like you don't either because you don't have to. So you found your niche working with coaches. I want to take a step back before we get too far into it because I like to kind of set the stage on who you were before you started working at home. So you talked about how you were working for 6 days before you were so crippled that you couldn't walk. That's crazy. Just for sitting there, pinched nerve and proper seating thing. And I find that quite interesting. Maybe some non-sciencey people don't really care, but I'm like, wow, you couldn't, after 6 days of sitting. I mean, I don't know. I've sat in a really bad chair at an office job before, so I get it. And it's just crazy how our body responds to things that we're not supposed to be doing. So tell me a little bit more detail about, like, before you got that job, kind of what your life looked like. Were you happy? What drove you to start really looking for how to make money online?
Absolutely. So I'm a millennial. I'm only 28. And I didn't do the whole traditional trajectory from high school to university to corporate job. I was always a free spirit. My parents are hippies, God love them. And they really encouraged me to go out there and explore. So I am a traveler by nature. I've been to almost 50 countries, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon. So that is kind of, that is kind of like who I am. So that free spirited, like not routine, not normal kind of route. So I'm not surprised I've like ended up where I am.
Yeah.
Like when I was first in online business, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was very disillusioned with my university degree and kind of the avenue that I was supposed to go. And I knew it wasn't meant for me, but I also knew that I needed to be able to pay my bills. So, I just did what I needed to do. And I really look back to that point where, 6 days in, as you said, like 6 days is really nothing. Like I started having the effects of it 2 days in, and I was just really bad after 6 days. But yeah, so I was a traveler. I did a lot of yoga, very, very hippie kind of stuff. But I was just really looking to find my place in the job market, I guess you would say that. And I was very lucky to have, and this might sound a little woo-woo, I'm not sure what your audience is like, but the universe tell me that, this is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do something else. And it kind of sucks that, you had to go to physio and go on workers' compensation and all that, but it brought you to where you were supposed to be. So super excited about that, as everyone should be if they're in a situation like that.
Yeah. And I find it super interesting that you're like, I'm not normal. And what came to mind when you said that for me was, I think a lot of people are starting to feel that same disillusionment. I know I did. And I was fortunate enough to be on scholarship for school. So I didn't have any student loan debt when I got out of college. But I know that a lot of people do. And they look back and they're like, I thought I was supposed to be okay with getting this college degree. And people are starting to realize that it's not what it used to be in the normal life. Is just not what it used to be. The American dream has evolved. And now it's like, okay, how do I create income without depending on these institutions that are kind of broken? Or I wouldn't say broken, but they're antiquated. They're meant for our society 20 years ago, and it doesn't work anymore. And people are still kind of clinging to that because there was never any notification about broadcast to the world that says, hey, the college degree isn't what it used to be anymore, guys. Now you need a master's degree. And now people are starting to get master's degrees, and those aren't really worth much anymore. And it's really all about your skills. And I just think it's great. And I do believe in science. I do believe that there's value in finding, for you, I think that was a valuable experience, as painful as it was, to figure out what you didn't want to do. And there's so many people that are listening to this right now, probably, that are afraid to take their first step, or just afraid to try something, or they really want to make money at home, but they're not willing to do X, Y, and Z. They just want to jump right to the big leagues. I think it's really valuable to find out what you don't want to do and start just to get the experience. And I mean, you did those writing jobs on Upwork and it wasn't your thing, but are you glad you did it, Amy? And would you say that it was valuable even though you didn't like it?
Oh, 100%. And I got to write about two topics that I absolutely love, which was Latin America and yoga. So it wasn't like the worst job I ever had, but I just knew that the whole writing thing wasn't for me. But again, if I hadn't explored that, maybe I was always thinking, well, what if? Because I do come from a very writing heavy background. So I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like, I'm good. I'm very eloquent in my writing. I know that I'll be able to do this well. And yeah, that may have been the case, but it didn't light me up.
Yeah. It's the same with me. I mean, I'm an excellent coffee writer, but I don't like it. And so it doesn't matter how good you are at something if it's not what lights you up. And so you should move on and do yourself a favor of continuing to search and find a thing that does light you up. It sounds like you have found that. Now, getting started, were you confident? I think there's this kind of myth that you're supposed to be confident when you get started, but I'm asking tons of people on this podcast and nobody's telling me yes. So are you going to tell me that yes, you were confident or?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, in all fairness, I didn't really know what I was doing for the first, I don't know. Well, I mean, I really didn't know what I was doing for the first like year and a half, but I didn't really know that I was becoming an entrepreneur and that I was actually taking the steps to, build a business. And, I say this with my team is like build an empire but based on the Star Wars kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely not confident. When I did decide and when I was conscious enough to be like, okay, I'm going to make this my business, I'm going to grow, I'm going to expand and I'm really go for it. It was terrifying because, as everybody that is listening to this, the fear of the unknown is what cripples most people. And to really push past that is such a hard thing to do, especially if you've had that protection of that 9-to-5 corporate job, or, even if you don't have a corporate 9-to-5 job, but you have some protection in your career. It's really scary, but it's totally worth it because you push yourself beyond these limits that you didn't even know that was possible. But yeah, definitely not confident when I started out. And if you meet anyone, please send them my way. I would love to pick their brain.
I think going through that and making the choice to take the steps is such a growing experience. And you're right. A lot of people are afraid of the unknown, and that keeps them in place because the fear of the unknown, they assume that it's going to be something terrible, but it's really, when they go through it, they realize, hey, it's not as bad as where I was. In fact, it's a lot better, and I'm improving as a person the more steps I take. And I was in the exact same position as you when I was getting started. I was a blogger for like a year and a half before I even knew I was a blogger. I thought I was just, doing stuff on the internet, and I had a website and I had this online course, and it just started becoming successful before I realized I'm not just a blogger, I'm a marketer. I'm a writer, I'm an author. And so it just kind of snowballs from there. But you've got to start by just taking like that first small step. And your first small step was just Googling how to make money online and just trying some things out and taking a step. I think some people just fall into, and research is important. I don't want to say that research is not important, but falling into this research vortex, this never ending spinning thing of trying to find the perfect thing before you make a move is what traps a lot of people as well. They're like, I got to find the perfect thing. I got to find the perfect thing. I got to find the perfect thing. No, you don't. You just need to start, especially if what you need is money, right? You just have to start. And then, yeah, you found your niche by, taking one of the jobs on Upwork, and boom, now you find yourself like, I found my people, right? And so it's a lot simpler to continue to grow your business if you know what niche you're in. And so I say, if you don't know what you want to do, you just know who you want to help, then you can go talk to those people and find out what their issues are. And I bet you're finding that in the world of, female coaches that they kind of all have the same problems, right?
Yeah, definitely. And just to add on that, like, that's what, for me, like, my niche wasn't, oh, I'm going to be a VA. It's not going to be this. It was that I wanted to help women that wanted to change the world. I mean, that's a little like fluff and woo, but that's pretty much what it was. And it has changed since then, but that was the first step for me to be able to like niche down and be happy about it. A lot of people, they get into the, oh, but what if I commit to that? Then I can't change and I can't do this. That's not the case. You do whatever you want. That's the beauty of working for yourself. If you do something for 2 years and then you're like, no, I'm ready to do something else, the choices are endless.
Yeah, you just pivot. And so speaking of pivoting, I'm going to shift gears. So what does your life look like now? We talked about how you were unhappy and you were in a lot of pain working the regular job. What does your life look like now? And how has things improved for you since you started doing what you're doing? Has your health improved? Things like that?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite quotes that another colleague of mine told me was something about entrepreneurship is like a deep dive into self-help. And, as ridiculous as that sounds, holy crap, being in charge of my income, my business, basically my life has changed my life like crazy. I've been able to heal some, emotional wounds that we all have just because a lot of things I've had, I was able to have access to a lot of coaches. But overall, just like the fact that I have that freedom is just so wonderful. So, I'm going to Europe in 2 months, but I'm taking my work with me. Something that I love to do is travel. I was able to adopt a dog and I don't have the regret of, leaving him at home for 9 hours a day. And I just get to love him. He's currently asleep behind me. And, I feel like my relationships with a lot of my friends have really changed, as well as my parents, just because I'm not stuck in this perpetual like bubble of what do I want to do with my life? Am I happy? Am I really happy? Is it because it's what society tells me to do? I know that I'm like actually happy. I imagine myself 2.5 years ago, and I am so thankful that I was able to become an entrepreneur and really be successful. So I'm able to, be that person I've always wanted to be.
Yeah, and it creates this ripple effect when you take the steps to take care of you, to listen to yourself. It creates a ripple effect. And we talk about ripple effect a lot on Work at Home Heroes, creating ripple effects in your business by niching down and really learning a skill before you try to learn all the things. And it's the same thing. If you focus on taking care of yourself, you're going to find it way easier to take care of other people, and people are going to see that glow you have, that you're staying true to who you are and working on your own terms, doing things that you love, and other people are going to notice. Now, when you first got into this, and you mentioned that your friends and family kind of see the difference in you, were they skeptical at all when you said, hey, I'm going to work for myself, or I'm done with this 9-to-5 thing, when they saw you kind of taking a different path from what was quote unquote normal? Were they skeptical? Did people say mean things to you or anything like that?
I don't know if they said anything mean to me, but they just had no idea what I was doing. And that was partly my fault because I wasn't able to like properly articulate to them what it was I was doing. That's fair. But luckily I come from a very like hippie family. So they're like, oh, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. That's totally fine. I do have some pretty conservative people in my life as well, though. They've done the very traditional high school, university, job, kids, white picket fence. And that's awesome. It makes them happy, but it's just not who I am. So I do get some backlash from that area. But overall, I would say and also it helps when you actually like starts being gainfully employed. When you're struggling a little bit, It's a little different. But now that I've been doing this for almost, 2.5 years now, they're like, okay, this is like actually a thing and she's doing it. So that's cool. So they've become much more accepting, but it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, they just don't know what's going on. And seeing it from their perspective makes it a little bit easier to be like, okay, well, they don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on, but I'm me. I'm going to keep doing it. I see what I could be. And so I'm going to just keep pressing towards that. When you get there, they're like, okay, you're not dead. You're not broke. You're not living under a bridge. We're happy for you. That's really exciting. And you might even inspire them to kind of start doing their own thing and starting pushing the envelope about what's normal for them and doing what they actually want to do. Now, you're a pretty busy person. Your application, you said you're clocking about 60 hours a week, but you love what you do and you're in production mode, and it doesn't feel so much like work because it's easy to be passionate when you're winning, right? You've got a profitable business. And I totally forgot to ask you, I know people are always like, make sure you ask, Caitlin, make sure you ask, how much money are you generating working at home right now, Amy?
Depending on the month, because I have a business model that most people would frown against. I work per hour. So I make anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 a month, depending on a variety of things, such as launches and all those. But
that's life-changing money right there. And so many people you wouldn't even believe, they write to me and they're like, I just want to make an extra $500 a month or $100 a week. And they don't realize how simple that is. And so when I talk to somebody here on the podcast and they're like, I'm making between $4,000 and $8,000 a month, like there's people whose jaws are dropping. They're listening to this podcast maybe for the first time. This is their second episode or whatever. And they're like, what? But we bring people on to talk about their stories, real life stories, real people using real skills to make real money and making a real difference by earning real income. It's crazy. And so I love having these kind of stories on, and I don't have any judgment towards your business model because it's rocking, you love it. But you mentioned off the air that you just hired 2 assistants. And so that's really exciting because you're in expansion mode as well. And hey, those people also work at home. Is that right?
yes, they do. Yes.
Yeah, so not only are we proving that Amy can work at home, Amy that lives in Canada, oh my goodness, she lives in, the tundras of Canada, right?
Yeah.
She can work at home, and she can also bring on 2 other people that work remotely as well. So that's what happens when you grow your business. You're able to create work for other people. In my team, we've got anywhere between 15 and we've had as many as 30 people working on different projects for our team. And it started with just me. And that's the thing. It has to start with just you, and nobody can take that first step besides you. Keeping yourself on track all day, how do you make sure that you get things done every day?
Well, this is something that I've just fine-tuned. It was a long, long time coming to be able to be confident in this, but I am a huge fan of time blocking. especially because I work per hour, it gets really confusing when you're racing all over the place. 2018, we're all very, that text message, that Instagram, like whatever, we're very like sidetracked a lot of the time. So one of the best things that I ever did, and believe me, as I said, it took a long time, was to train my brain to focus on one task at a time. So backing up for time blocking is basically you go through your schedule and you say, okay, I'm going to do this from 11:30 until 12:30. And it's non-negotiable. You start at 11:30 and then you end at 12:30. You know, I kind of play with that a little bit. If I'm 10 minutes away from finishing a project, I'm not going to do the hard stop because that, in my brain, that's not productive. But, you know, if I know I have like 2 or 3 more hours, I'm not going to push it any longer than I need to, just because it keeps me on track. I know that I'm getting a certain amount done, and then I'll make sure that the next 2 hours of that project goes into my time blocking schedule tomorrow or the day after, depending when it's due and depending what other work I have around there. But luckily, I'm a very self-motivated person, so I do have that added advantage, but I'm also into self-mastery and like human hacking. So that is why time blocking is, and this is like one of my favorite sayings, the bee's knees, because it really is.
Yeah. And at the beginning, when I introduced you, I said we're going to talk about managing overwhelm. And so this is like a great segue. This is, I think, one of the best strategies and something that I use myself. And it's not something that I've called time blocking. I just call, making a deal with myself. I sit down, I'm like, I'm dreading answering emails. So I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes and I'm going to answer emails for 30 minutes. And then I can quit. Like I can call it a win. And what happens is more often than not, I'm able to answer every single email in less than 30 minutes. And I was just making myself all stressed out and overwhelmed for no reason. We have so much perceived overwhelm in our lives that if we just sit down and instead of saying, I got to tackle all the things, I'm just going to do it for 30 minutes. And it really has changed my life. And it sounds like it's changed yours as well. And so you guys listening at home, you're feeling overwhelmed, just take it in small chunks. And that's what you help your clients to do. You break down projects to make them more manageable. Creating more efficient systems, and time blocking is an excellent system to work with. Now, I also promised that we'd talk about what Ontraport and what sales funnels are. So just give us a little snapshot. We don't have a ton of time left, but I want to make sure that I fulfill my promises. Amy, tell us what a sales funnel is.
Okay, so this is something that took me a really long time to like fully understand. But a sales funnel is more or less from the first time that your audience members come in to your email list, or if you're really awesome, you have like messenger bots, I'm sure there'll be Instagram bots, Pinterest bots, all those in the next little bit. But if you have one of those, and then they go through a series of emails, and depending on, I say sales funnels, but I like all types of funnels, so the nurturing, but the sales funnel specific is to get you to buy a product. So my favorite kind of model, and this is very simplified, but it's just the landing page with the lead in. You have this awesome cheat sheet on how to leave the 9 to 5 or whatever other more interesting kind of freebie you want to attract your audience with. And then you have, the delivery email, which gives them that freebie. It gives them some, words of wisdom. And then you do a follow-up, a day, 2 days later, say, how is this? This is like, I hope this has helped you. I have something else that's super complimentary. And one of the things for me today is the importance of over-delivering. I feel like a lot of people, and I know digital marketer, God love them, but they're like so quick, and it just goes against my kind of idea of how I want to be sold to. So I'm really into content like over-delivering. So instead of, selling them that second email that you send them, it's going to be, here's something else for you. And then depending on the length of the sales funnel that you actually want to implement in your business, it can be anywhere from 3 days to 3 months. I have built some really complicated, extensive funnels that last 6 months and only do 3 sales in that entire period. So, a sales funnel in itself is just to get you to buy a product, but it is in a way that nurtures each and every single member that comes into your community.
Yeah. And I think that's super important, and it's something that I implement in my own business as well. Like, I don't like to immediately sell people on the stuff. I want them to become my friend first. I want them to know that they can trust me. And the best way to do that is to give them a ton of value and show them that I know what I'm talking about and that I'm legitimate and that my number one goal is to help them and not to just take their money, right? I want to help them make more money and empower them and not sell them a product, but I want to sell them on themselves. And so in my own sales funnels, I make sure that I over deliver as well. And so how does Ontraport kind of play into all that?
So Ontraport is a program that's relatively new. I think it was created in 2010, although please don't quote me on that date. But it is an email marketing system, but it's an all-encompassing one. So it's something similar to MailChimp, but on steroids. So it has an email list, landing pages, payment processing, affiliate center, audiences for Facebook ads. It literally has everything. Well, not everything, but it integrates with a lot of programs just to make everything easier for you. You know, it is a higher end product. So if you're just starting out, it's not necessarily something that you would go to. But when you're really starting to see the growth, it really helps you automate parts of your business that, you know, MailChimp, although they are growing, and Aweber, and, you know, the lower end or the less featured email marketing systems have. So that's why I love Ontraport. And it is growing. And there's a lot of like, you know, famous in my sphere, because I'm in the coaching sphere, people that do use it and they love it. But I'm obsessed with the system. I could go on forever about it. So I will stop.
I have one last question for you. And you guys that want to learn more about Ontraport or maybe even looking into becoming an Ontraport Certified Consultant like Amy, you can check that out. Google Ontraport. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Amy, my final question for you is a question I ask all of our Work at Home Heroes podcast guests, and it's about the F word. It's about fear, because there's people listening right now that are like, well, that sounds great, Amy. You just happened to Google one day and then all of a sudden you're successful. No, that's not how it happened. But they're shaking in their boots. They're like, yeah, Amy, you can take that first step, but what about me? I can't do that. They're scared to death to take that first step. What would you tell that person?
What an excellent question. I wouldn't tell them anything because I don't like forcing ideas into people's head. But what I would get you to think about is, and as cliche as this is, like, think of your life on your deathbed. You want to look back on your life and you want to say you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. You wanted to live a life on your own terms. You wanted to do what made you happy. And if in the present situation of living or working in your current job is going to do that, great. But if it's not, that's something to think about.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Really good starting point for people, because people are going to allow that fear of unknown to stop them. How long are you going to let that go on? You're going to let that go on for the next 5, 10, 15? When are we going to take that step? And if you want to take it now, then what's standing in your way other than you, right? And a lot of times it is. We are the only thing standing in our way. So thank you so much for being on the show, Amy. I know that there are going to be questions, so we're going to tag you in the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group. Where can somebody reach you?
So you can find me on Instagram at amy.demone. That's my Instagram handle. Or you can find me at my website, which is amydemone.com. And if you don't know how to spell my name, you will be able to see it on the show notes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thanks again for listening, guys. I'd like to invite you to be a part of our Facebook community if you're not a member already. That group is called Work at Home Heroes. There's going to be a link in the show notes to find the group. We'll open up a discussion about this episode, so I hope to see you in there. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Work at Home Heroes podcast with Caitlin Pyle. Be sure to listen to previous episodes at caitlinpyle.co/podcast. While you're there, read the show notes and check out all the great links and resources mentioned in this episode and more. You can also subscribe to the Work at Home Heroes podcast so you'll automatically be notified when our next episode is available. Remember, as Caitlin says, mo skills means mo money.